There is one thing keeping millions of people on Windows right now. It is fear. Specifically, the fear that if they try Linux even once, they will lose everything. Their files, their programs, their photos, their entire digital life. That fear is understandable. And it is almost entirely wrong. You do not have to choose. You do not have to delete Windows. You do not have to wipe your hard drive, gamble with your photos, or commit to anything. There is a way to try Linux tonight. And if you decide tomorrow morning that it is not for you, your Windows installation is sitting there exactly as you left it. Untouched, complete. This video is going to show you how to do that. 3 different ways, in order from safest to slightly more involved. We are going to walk through each one step by step, slowly, because this audience does not need to be rushed. And at the end, I am going to tell you which Linux version to try first and why. Before we get into the steps, let me give you one sentence that will make everything else make sense. Your hard drive is just storage. It is a physical space. And just like you can partition a room with a wall, you can partition a hard drive so that part of it runs Windows and part of it runs Linux, and the two never interfere with each other. That is what dual booting is. 2 operating systems on one computer. When you turn on your PC, a small menu appears, maybe 5 seconds, and you choose Linux today, Windows tomorrow, or Linux today and Windows later the same day. You are in control at every single boot. Your Windows files stay exactly where they are. Your documents, your downloads, your photos, none of that moves. Linux goes into its own separate section of the drive. The 2 systems do not share space. That is the concept. Everything else in this video is just the mechanics of setting that up. But before we even get to dual booting, there is a method that is even safer. A method where nothing gets installed on your hard drive at all. That is where we are starting. Method 1. The live USB, 0 risk, 0 commitment. This is the safest way to try Linux that exists. Technically safer than anything else we will discuss today. Here is how it works. You put Linux on a USB drive. You boot your PC from that USB drive. Linux runs entirely from the USB, entirely in your computer's memory. Your hard drive is not touched, not read from, not written to. Your Windows installation is invisible to the whole process. When you are done, you shut down, pull out the USB drive, restart, and your PC boots straight back into Windows like nothing happened. There is no installation. There is no risk. There is nothing to undo. Here is exactly what you need and what you do. What you need: a USB drive, 8 GB minimum, 16 preferred. You can buy one for a few dollars. Anything currently on that USB drive will be erased during this process, so use one you do not mind wiping. Step 1. Download Linux Mint. Go to linuxmint.com. Click Download. You will see several editions. Choose the Cinnamon edition. That is the one that looks most like Windows, with a taskbar along the bottom and a Start menu-style launcher in the corner. Download the file. It will be roughly 2.5 GB and will end in the extension .iso. Step 2. Download Rufus. Go to rufus.ie. Download the free portable version. It is under 2 MB, no installation required. Many of you already have Rufus from a previous video on this channel. If you do, you already have everything you need. Step 3. Create the bootable USB. Open Rufus. In the device field at the top, make sure your USB drive is selected. Click the select button and navigate to the Linux Mint ISO file you just downloaded. Leave all other settings at their defaults. Click Start. Rufus will ask you to confirm that the USB drive contents will be wiped. Confirm it. The process takes about 5 minutes. Step 4. Boot from the USB. Restart your PC. As it starts up, before Windows loads, you need to press a key to access the boot menu. On most computers, this is F12. On some, it is F2 or the delete key. The right key is usually shown briefly on screen during startup, or you can look it up with your computer model name and the phrase boot menu key. When the boot menu appears, Select your USB drive from the list. The computer will start loading Linux. Step 5. Choose Try Linux Mint. When the Linux Mint startup screen appears, you will see two options. One says Install Linux Mint. The other says Try Linux Mint. Choose Try, not Install, Try. Linux Mint loads to a full desktop. Everything works. You can browse the web with Firefox. You can open LibreOffice for documents. You can explore the file manager. Use it for an hour. Use it for a week. You can boot from the USB every time you want to explore. Get comfortable with it. When you are finished, simply shut down the computer, remove the USB drive, and start it again. Windows loads normally. Nothing has changed. One important note: anything you do while running from the USB, files you save, settings you change, will not be saved when you reboot. The USB is a read-only experience. You are looking, not living in it. That is actually the point. There is nothing to break. If after a week of casual exploration, you find yourself thinking, "This is actually fine, I could use this," then you are ready for the Method 2. Method 2, Dual Boot Linux alongside Windows, your choice at startup. Before a single step of this method, we are going to talk about backups. This is not optional, and it is not a formality. Dual booting involves resizing your Windows partition, the section of your hard drive that Windows occupies. Modern tools do this reliably, but this is still a moment where you are making changes to the structure of your drive, and if your power cuts out at the wrong second, you want to know your files are safe. Back up first. Always. What to back up? Plug in an external hard drive or a large USB drive. Copy your documents folder, your desktop, your downloads, your photos, anything you would be devastated to lose. If you use OneDrive or another cloud service, verify your files have actually synced before proceeding. Two additional things to note down. First, your Windows product key. Open Settings, go to System, then About. Your product key is listed there. Write it down or take a photo of it. You will probably never need it, but have it. Second, if you use BitLocker encryption, which some Windows 11 machines enable by default, save your BitLocker recovery key now. Go to account.microsoft.com, sign in, and navigate to Devices, then Recovery Keys. Save that key somewhere offline. If you do not do this and something goes wrong during installation, you could lock yourself out of your own Windows partition. Once your backup is done, here are the steps. Step 1. Create space for Linux on your hard drive. Open Disk Management. The fastest way is to right-click the Start button and select Disk Management from the menu. You will see a visual map of your hard drive. Find your main Windows partition. It is usually the largest block, labeled C:. Right-click on it and select Shrink Volume. Windows will calculate how much space can be freed. You want to shrink by at least 30,000 megabytes. That is 30 gigabytes for Linux. If you can spare more, 50 gigabytes is comfortable. The important thing is to leave your Windows partition with at least 50 gigabytes for itself after the shrink. Do not cut Windows short. After the shrink completes, you will see a black block of unallocated space appear on the right side of your drive map. That is where Linux is going. Do not touch it. Do not format it. Leave it exactly as it is. Step 2. Boot from your Linux Mint USB. This is the same process as Method 1. Restart the PC. Access the boot menu with F12 or the appropriate key. Select the USB drive. Step 3. This time, select Install Linux Mint. The installer opens. Work through the screens. When you reach the installation type screen, you will see an option that reads Install Linux Mint alongside Windows Boot Manager. Select that option. The installer finds the unallocated space you created and sets up Linux there automatically. It does not touch your Windows partition. Continue through the remaining steps, setting your time zone, creating a username and password for Linux. The installation takes approximately 20 minutes. Step 4. Reboot. When the installation finishes and you remove the USB drive and restart, a menu appears on a black screen. This is grub, the bootloader. It lists Linux Mint and Windows Boot Manager. Use the arrow keys to select which one to boot. If you do nothing, it defaults to Linux after a short countdown. That is it. 2 operating systems, 1 computer. You choose every morning. 1 potential complication worth knowing about. On some newer PCs, particularly those running Windows 11, a feature called Fast Startup can interfere with dual boot detection. If the Linux installer does not detect your Windows installation, go back into Windows first. Open Control Panel, then Power Options, then click Choose what the power buttons do. Look for a checkbox that says Turn on Fast Startup. Uncheck it. Save changes. Then try the installation again. Secure Boot, a security feature on newer UEFI systems, can sometimes cause issues as well. Linux Mint handles Secure Boot reasonably well in recent versions, but if you encounter a problem starting the installer, the option to disable Secure Boot temporarily is in your PC's BIOS settings, accessible from the same boot menu key you used earlier. Method 3. Virtual Machine. Linux inside Windows. No reboot required. This third method is for the viewer who wants to see Linux but is not ready to restart their computer to do it. A virtual machine is software that runs on your Windows desktop and simulates a complete, separate computer inside a window. You install Linux inside that simulated computer. Linux runs in a window like any other program. When you close the window, Linux stops. Windows keeps running. The tool we recommend is VirtualBox. It is free, it is open source, and it comes from Oracle. Download it at virtualbox.org. Here are the steps. Download and install VirtualBox on Windows. Open it. Click New to create a new virtual machine. Give it a name. Something like Linux Mint is fine. For the type field, select Linux. For the version field, select Ubuntu 64-bit. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, so this setting works correctly. VirtualBox will ask how much RAM to allocate. Give it at least 4 GB, 4,000 megabytes. If your computer has 16 gigabytes of RAM, you can give it 8. More RAM means faster performance. Create a virtual hard disk when prompted. 25 gigabytes is the minimum. 30 is better. This is not real disk space you are losing permanently. It is a file on your drive that Linux treats as a disk. Before you start the virtual machine, go into its settings. Click Storage. You will see a CD icon labeled Empty. Click on it, then click the small disk icon on the right side of the screen and select your Linux Mint ISO file. This tells VirtualBox to boot from the ISO as if it were a DVD. Click Start. Linux Mint boots inside the window. Install it to the virtual hard disk when prompted. From that point forward, every time you open VirtualBox and start that virtual machine, Linux Mint loads in its window on your Windows desktop. One honest note about performance. A virtual machine is slower than running Linux natively. Not unusably slow on a modern machine with enough RAM, but noticeably slower. Tasks that would feel instant on a native dual boot installation may feel slightly sluggish in a virtual machine. This method is ideal for getting familiar with Linux, learning your way around, and deciding whether you want to commit to a dual boot setup. It is not ideal as a permanent daily driver. For the most cautious viewer, this is the place to start. For anyone who decides they want more speed and a more authentic experience after exploring the virtual machine, Method 2 is the natural next step. Throughout this video, I have referred to Linux Mint by name. I want to be precise about why, because Linux has hundreds of distributions and the choice matters for this particular audience. Linux Mint uses the Cinnamon desktop environment in its default edition. The taskbar sits at the bottom of the screen. There is an application launcher in the bottom left corner. The file manager works like Windows Explorer. The system tray sits in the bottom right. If you were dropped into Linux Mint without being told what it was, you would know how to start navigating within about 60 seconds. That familiarity is not cosmetic. It is functional. It reduces the cognitive load of learning a new system, which is the real barrier for anyone switching from Windows at this stage of life. Beyond appearance, Linux Mint runs well on older hardware. That matters significantly for this audience. Microsoft has declared that any PC without a TPM 2.0 chip is incompatible with Windows 11. Millions of machines that ran Windows 10 perfectly well are being pushed toward obsolescence. Linux Mint runs on those machines. It runs on machines that are 10 years old. It does not require a Microsoft account. It does not require an internet connection during setup. It does not advertise at you. It comes with LibreOffice for documents and spreadsheets, Firefox for browsing, and media players for video and music, all installed and ready to use without downloading anything further. Long-term support releases of Linux Mint are supported with security updates for 5 years, which means you are not being pushed off a cliff on a schedule the way Windows users are right now. If, after spending time with Linux Mint, you want to explore further, there is one other distribution worth knowing about for complete beginners: Zorin OS. Zorin OS is specifically designed to look like Windows and has a particularly clean, polished interface aimed at people making this exact transition. It is a reasonable second step if Linux Mint's approach does not click with you. But start with Linux Mint. The community is large, the documentation is thorough, and the answers to most beginner questions are already written down somewhere. Here is where we are. The barrier was never Linux. It was not knowing there was a safe way in. Now you know. You have seen 3 separate ways to explore Linux without risking a single file. The path I recommend for this audience: start tonight with the live USB. Download Linux Mint, download Rufus, put Linux on a USB drive, and boot into it. Spend a week exploring casually. If it feels like something you could actually use, and for most of you it will, come back here and follow the dual boot steps. Keep Windows, keep your files, keep your options open. If you have been watching this channel for a while, you know we do not push anyone anywhere. Our job is to give you accurate information and let you decide. Subscribe so you do not miss such insightful stories.